All right, so this is the very first podcast, and I wanted to do a quick intro just so you can know what to expect from the podcast. And I didn't really want to overthink this intro too much, so I'm going to just go off top. So basically, I'm going to be interviewing a couple of my friends, people in different fields from, producers, DJs, entrepreneurs, fitness experts, and kind of just them telling their story about how they got to where they are, any roadblocks they might have come across along the way, and just any advice in general they might have for, people in their field. So the first episode right here that you're about to check out, I was in Atlanta during Super Bowl weekend with a friend of mine, Sebastian Jackson, who owns Social Club Grooming Company in Detroit. And just pretty much just talking about his journey in opening his barbershops, and then even the whole reason why we're in Atlanta doing a production where he partnered with the NFL. So, Scratchin the Service Podcast, episode 1. Yo, it's DJ Mo Beatz, very first episode of Scratchin the Service Podcast. Got my homie Sebastian Jackson in the building. Actually out here in Atlanta right now, Super Bowl weekend, a lot of stuff going on. Man, before you even get into it, appreciate you coming on the podcast. Very first episode, very first guest.
My guy. We've been trying to do something for a minute. I'm happy we got to do this. This is fire.
This is perfect right here, man. Yeah. Just to give everybody like a little bit of background. So, master barber, entrepreneur, probably a lot of other titles in there.
Yeah.
But man, so I guess I'll let you give the proper intro of like your background and everything, so that they'll know what's up.
Yeah. So I guess my background is I cut hair by trade. I studied journalism in college. While I was in college in Detroit, I thought there needed to be a barbershop on campus. I built up a clientele on campus, and just saw a need for it. You know what I mean? And when I identified that problem, I wanted to create a solution. And maybe about 3 or 4 years after building that clientele on campus, started to pursue my opportunity to open up my own barbershop. And that's kind of blossomed into being here at this 53rd Super Bowl, man. It's a crazy journey, but yeah, man, it's been a blessing. It's been a journey. It's been crazy.
So at what point did you go from just cutting hair, maybe like wherever, to being like, yo, I want to open a shop?
Yeah. So I started really at 15 in my parents' garage.
Okay.
And at the time, I didn't know that I was like founding a company or founding a startup. I think a lot of great companies do start in their parents' garage or in the garage with their friends, so on and so forth. As I start reading books about like great entrepreneurs, I kind of learn their process. I learned their origin stories, and I still didn't see myself in those stories, right? I didn't see a barbershop as a startup. I didn't necessarily see myself as an entrepreneur probably until maybe 12 or 13 years into my career in cutting hair. But I started at 15, and around 22, got serious about the craft and wanted to open my own barbershop. And between that 15 and 22 years old, something happened, something clicked where I said, okay, now I'm going to be a serious barber. And then from 22 to 32, something else has transformed where I realize now I have the opportunity to build a startup that can really create impact globally. You know what I mean? And like using men's grooming, but also what happens inside the barbershop,
Okay.
Yeah.
So from starting the first shop, because you have multiple shops, we forgot to mention that part.
Yeah.
Were there any like roadblocks or anything where you were just like, yo, I didn't expect this to happen?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's what entrepreneurship is, right? You're trying to solve small problems continuously, right? Continuously improve. And I think even getting the first shop open, right? I think I was 25 years old. So at 22, I decided I wanted to own my own barbershop. It took 3 years to actually like materialize that vision, right? Have that vision be executed. And in order to go from vision to execution, even from 24 to 25, it was damn near impossible, right? So I went to Wayne State. That's where I studied journalism. That's where I cut hair. That's where my clientele. And I went to Wayne State with a business plan and said, yo, this is what I want to do. I've been cutting in the shop for 3 years. I want to name the shop Campus Cuts. I'm partnering with the current owner, so on and so forth. They declined that business plan. Went back with the second business plan after asking why they declined. Made some improvements, made some adjustments in that business plan. They declined me again. Went back a third time, they declined me again. Went back a fourth time. This time I went back with $27,000 in my bank account that I had saved over 6 months. I lied to my wife, telling her that we were going to save it for a crib, right. And they gave me a shot. So I said, babe, look, I want to open this barbershop. We're not going to buy this house right now. We want to open this barbershop, or I want to open a barbershop. She believed in me enough to support that vision. And so, like, even getting the first one open, there was a tremendous amount of roadblocks. And I think one of the main roadblocks that entrepreneurs face is themselves, right? So I never had that problem. I think a lot of my problems came from, like, outside of my own mind, right? Like these exterior issues, people believing in me. But I think a lot of entrepreneurs that have brilliant ideas have trouble believing in themselves. And I think that's one of the main things that we've got to figure out how to solve as a society, as a community, right? Especially as Black people, right? So when I was younger, I would say, I want to be an entrepreneur. In our community, when you say you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to start your own business, they say, like, you don't know what you really want to do. Like, let's figure out what it is you want to do. I didn't necessarily understand entrepreneurship, but I did know I want to start up my own business. And I think in other cultures, especially like in Silicon Valley, where some of my mentors exist, like they say, when you say you want to start a business, somebody writes you a check for $4 million and say, like, let's figure it out. But in our community, because we don't have those resources, because our resources are so limited, the idea of starting your own, supporting your own, I think that barrier to entry is one of the greatest, right? Having that support system and having that belief in yourself that you can do it in the first place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Sure. Yeah.
So, like, you mentioned originally wanted to name the shop Campus Cuts. Mm-hmm. So what kind of made you switch to be like, the social club? Like,
yeah. So I originally wanted to name it Campus Cuts because I wanted to have a barber shop on every college campus throughout the United States. And then I realized the vision could be a little bit bigger, not necessarily in like the number of shops or where they would be, but just what it means, right? And I realized that on a college campus, college kids want to belong to something, whether it be a fraternity or sorority, some type of social club, right? People want to belong. People want to be seen, right? And when I mean seen, I don't mean like they want to be visible. I mean they want to actually matter, right? They want people to understand who they are. And I thought that, we needed to create a place where people could belong. You know what I mean? We needed to create a place where people saw themselves. And so that's what the social club meant. It meant a club for people that wanted to be in a place belonging and socially interacting. And we built the kind of concept around social interaction and social impact. It was interesting. Like when you build it, people will come. Like that idea is true. I mean, you have to kind of understand a little bit about what you're doing. But a lot of startups fail to start because they're trying to figure out all the nuts and bolts of things, writing business plans, and this, and the other. Like, that was a huge mistake that I made in the beginning. I had to convince Wayne State through those 3 or 4 business plans. But I don't believe that entrepreneurs should actually be trying to perfect an idea through writing down ideas.
As opposed to action.
Right, like let's go out and do it. Let's go out and test it. Let's go out and figure out, do people actually want to get a haircut by me, right? I already had a business through building a clientele in my dorm room. I already had a business through cutting hair in my parents' garage. You know what I mean? So that's the validation that the entrepreneur needs. Like, are their customers willing to part with their money to pay for your product or service? Yeah. If you can get one person to do that, like, then figure out how you can get a second person, the third person, the 20th person. So the social club was more about understanding that I needed to create meaning for a brand versus like scale this commoditized service of cutting hair, right? Campus Cuts is very super cuts, is very Fantastic Sam's, right? And I think the social club just meant something different,
It definitely has a different ring to it,
Right.
too.
Yeah.
So I know over at the social club, you guys are doing shop talk. So what? Kind of give me like the origin or what made you come up with that idea to start doing the shop talks.
Yeah. So at the social club, going back to belonging, when we started doing shop talk, it came out of the idea of having access to all these dope people that came in the shop, right? Like yourself. You were a client of mine before I owned a social club, I believe.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? You've been coming
for a while.
Get a haircut for years, you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
And several other people have as well, right? And so whether I've like learned from those individuals, some of them went on to do great things. Most people have went on to do great things, right? And whether I'm learning that information and sharing it with clientele that don't have access to those individuals, or I can directly give access to our community. That's what the goal was, right? I wanted to give our community access to these individuals that had information that allowed them to kind of ascend in life,
Okay.
right? Or excel in life. So why is Mo Beatz able to travel the world and do what he does, at the level that he's able to do it, right? Like, what about your mentality allows you to like be up at 11 at night doing what we're doing right now?
Yeah.
Right? Or like why do you keep wanting to get better at scratching? Why do you want to then get into production? Like, what's that mentality? Can you like explain that to me so that I can explain that to this guy that's gonna get his haircut by me at 3:00 on Tuesday? You know what I mean? And if you're willing to do that, like, do me one better. Are you willing to sit down in front of this guy and 40 other people, 50 other people, and explain that mentality, explain the process of getting there, right? And also explain like the benefit of getting there. And people agreed to do that. People agreed to like share their information, right? People agreed to share their information because they understood like the barbershop meant something to them. Like they belonged here, and because they belonged here, and those other 200 or 500 or 7,000 people, right? We're up to like 10,000 people in our database now. Like all those people belong to this organization, and they found out about it the same way kind of you did, like through getting a haircut from somebody they trust, right? And with that trust comes a relationship that's built. And with that relationship comes information exchange. And I think we built kind of a learning community, And so that's what Shop Talk is right now, right? Shop Talk is us wanting to connect cultural leaders to future cultural innovators, right? And right now we're doing that in a physical form, but, we got some stuff on the pipeline that's going to allow us to do it in other forms, you know what I mean? But it's about information. It's about information exchange, access to information. People want to learn differently today. People don't want to necessarily sit in the classroom, and we're providing an alternative to traditional learning,
Okay. Yeah, so like I mentioned, we're in Atlanta right now, Super Bowl weekend, and actually tomorrow is when we're doing the Shop Talk out here. Can you kind of like explain like what's going on out here and how that even came together? Because you partnered with the NFL for this joint that we're doing.
So Shop Talk started in 2013. We eventually started traveling the country doing Shop Talk with Shinola, the watch brand. Really we can call it a lifestyle company at this point. They've got a hotel, they've got watches, they've got bikes, they've got all these different things. And we partnered with them after about a year of doing Shop Talk in our flagship location. They saw what we were doing. I had the opportunity to go guest lecture at Harvard Business School. After that discussion, Shinola reached out like, yo, this Shop Talk thing is very dope. We want to travel the country with it. We want to like take you on tour. And so my business partner at the time, Rick Williams, we put together a list of cities. We traveled the country, and we did Shop Talk with people like Jeff Staple, DJ Clark Kent, Mark Anthony Green from GQ, Casey Gerald, you know what I mean? Just all these really interesting people that had interesting stories and information from those interesting stories to share with communities throughout the country. From there, we were able to travel to Toronto, Salzburg, Austria, different places around the world, and provide a platform for people to engage, with each other, right? So it turned into kind of like a community engagement platform. Now it's turning into real, a real community classroom, a tool for learning, But in between this community engagement and this learning tool, we discovered that the barbershop could also be used as a place to have open, honest conversation about whatever. And that's what's been happening historically. Like, I didn't make that up.
Yeah, you in the barbershop,
me and Rick didn't make that up. Me and Gabby
yeah.
didn't make that up. My wife, my business partner. That's what happens in the barbershop. Like, people just talk shit. You know what I mean? And some of it is real, some of it is fake, but it's all open, it's all honest. It's everybody saying how they feel. And they're saying how they feel because they understand they have a voice in that place. And they understand they have a voice in that place because they belong to that place, right? Every barbershop is a social club. You know what I mean? And so when we realized that we could kind of break barriers, when we realized that we could provide a safe place, but more than a safe place, we could provide a brave place for people to like tell their truth. We realized this could be a tool that we could use to foster understanding, foster relationships between communities that maybe don't connect with each other. You know what I mean? And so through Harvard Business School, through going through programs with Goldman Sachs and different things, I met a lady named Moy Tahirpour. Moy Tahirpour is a professor at Wharton Business School. She's a negotiations professor. And I was in litigation at the time with a very powerful organization. And I was protecting our intellectual property.
Can you speak on that in detail right now or no?
I can't really speak on it in detail.
Because I know what you're talking about.
But yeah, I can't really, yeah. I can't really speak on it in detail, but, like going through that process was crazy. And I had her to lean on and help me understand like what negotiation might look like, how we could, figure this out, right? And get through it. And not go broke. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so in that process, she said, look, I understand what you're going through. I understand you're trying to protect your intellectual property. But why don't we focus on like still growing your brand? Why don't we focus on, you still solving the problems that you want to solve? She said, I have a client that, I think could use this platform to really connect with the community that is here to serve, right? And I said, well, who's the client? She said, it's NFL. And I said, oh, yeah, I'd love to work with the NFL Players Association. She was like, no, the NFL, not the NFL Player Association,
for real.
the NFL.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, man, I don't know, more like the NFL, they like going through it right. And she was like, exactly, I think that, you should talk to this guy, Arthur McAfee. He's the director of player engagement, right? He's the senior vice president of player engagement, right? And I said, okay, well, let's talk to Arthur. I talked to Arthur. And when I talked to Arthur, it reminded me of a shop talk we did in Toronto with a guy named Marcus Troy. And one of the audience members asked Marcus, he said, man, how do you get deals done with all these huge organizations? You got Adidas, then you got Nike, then you got this, then you got that. How do you get these deals done? How do you work with these organizations? And he said, I don't work with organizations, I work with people. And those people work at organizations. He said, so if a guy works at Adidas that I've had a relationship with for 5 years, and then he goes to Nike, now I've got Nike too. You know what I'm saying? Because I have that relationship. And so when I met Arthur, I said, man, he's a cool dude. This is a black guy, lawyer, been in the game for, 20, 30 years. And he just seemed like my uncle. You know what I mean? And I said, yeah, I got to work with Arthur. Arthur's dope. You know what I mean? And he works, in the front office in NFL. Very powerful position, And I said, this makes sense. So we started to work through like what shop talk might look like in collaboration with the NFL. And it turned out that Troy Vincent, his superior, volunteered to participate in our first shop talk. Now, Troy Vincent is the third man in charge in the front office. He is the executive vice president of football operations. He's basically like the COO of the league. You know what I mean? And another black man, right? And so here's a guy, Troy Vincent, that played football in the NFL at a very high level. Now he's in an executive position in the front office, working for the NFL. But understands the player's position, he understands the front office's position, and he's a black man. So I realized that we could facilitate a conversation between the NFL and the player community, which consists of future NFL players, right, that are in the draft, current players, and former players, which we call legends. And I thought it could be a powerful conversation to have around a number of different issues. And tomorrow we're talking about social justice. We're talking about, what the league needs to look like for the players to feel fulfilled, being an employee in this organization, and life during and after football, right? Let's talk about finance. Let's talk about, a number of different things. But the most important thing we're going to talk about is social justice, and we're going to bring up Kaepernick. We're going to bring up all these different things. Now, it's not open to the public. It's open to several players in the player community and the front office because we're facilitating that conversation. And it's amazing, man, that 6 years ago, I started this little barber shop in Detroit at Wayne State. We opened up a second small location downtown Detroit. We created this thing that is now able to be a part of a global organization that's kind of like being the middleman, having this conversation between, two powerful entities. You know what I mean? I mean, it's one powerful organization, right? It's one community, but you've got these groups that kind of have different perspectives and they need to understand each other. And our job is to foster that understanding. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's really good seeing all this come together, especially what you saying, like it started in the garage. So it's like from starting in the garage to Super Bowl weekend in Atlanta, doing stuff directly with the NFL.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Amazing.
I mean, and your story is the same story, bro. Like everybody that takes what they do serious is the same. Like I'm sure you were like DJing in your room or like scratching. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it just started. Like you keep going and you practice your craft, and that craft will take you amazing places. Like I cut hair, bro.
Especially doing it for the right reason.
You know what I'm
it's
saying?
like I'm passionate about this.
Right,
not
right,
like, let me do this to make a couple dollars.
Right.
It's like, this is what I love to do.
Yeah. I was just talking about this. I was cutting my friend's hair earlier tonight, and we were talking about retirement and this, that, and the other. And I said, look, man, like the reason why we've been given these gifts, why we're given gifts in the beginning, and then we honed in on those gifts to make them skills. Right, the reason why we did that is because it's our job to make a contribution now. Like, we've got to contribute something to the earth, to the world, before we leave here. Like, I don't give a fuck if we retire at 40 or 50 or whatever. We have to make a contribution. You know what I mean? The earlier you make that contribution, like, the earlier you build something that lasts.
That legacy.
Like, then you can, that's it. Okay, now you can walk away. You're going to... likely you're going to do something else because it's not about, like, the money and all this and other. It's about the deal. It's about, the getting the stuff out of your brain. It's about, like, perfecting that craft. And so that's what I'm here for. I'm here to make a contribution. And tomorrow, like, I get to experience that at a very high level. And and that's what's most humbling to me. Like, we've been working hard, bro. It's been difficult. You know what I mean?
I can imagine.
And, being in the space I'm in, it's not like, people are necessarily getting rich in that space. You know what I mean? It's kind of a thankless job that we do. It's almost like some people don't even respect it, right? It's almost like a hustle versus a career or versus a craft. You know what I mean?
But you found a way to go around that and give it back at the same time.
And so I think I found a way to like elevate it a little bit to where we can build things and show value to the point where people like globally eventually will have respect for what the barber means to the community, what the hairstylist means to the community, right? And I think, yeah, it's coming, bro. We have some heat on the way.
Nice. I know it's getting a little bit late, but before we wrap up, I definitely want to see if you have any advice for any like young entrepreneurs, like just any type of advice at all for somebody young just trying to get it going.
Yeah. So I think one, like believe in your vision. Like you're going to have a vision, you're going to be given a vision. Like I think once you identify what that genius is in you, what that gift is in you, you have to like really hone in on it, like take it serious, learn everything you can about it. You know what I mean? Try to stay away from people that don't see it, don't believe in it. Like don't let them tell you because, you know, it hasn't been done before, you can't do it. Look, I'm a barber, and now, like, the NFL is a partner. That doesn't make any sense. 6 years ago. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I couldn't even explain to you how we would have gotten there. But I promise, if you focus on that craft and you study it and you really understand it, you'll have a breakthrough. Once you put those 10,000 hours in, you become an outlier and something shifts. I really, truly believe that. You know what I mean? And so that's 40 hours a week for 5 years. You're going to figure something out. You know what I mean? And you're going to take it to another level. Whether you're DJing and you turn into a producer and you keep producing for now, 10,000 hours and you get that hit, like it's going to happen.
Something.
Like it's going to shake.
Yeah.
And so I think for me, I've just been brave enough to like stay focused and stay in my lane for long enough and believe in that vision for something to shake. Now I'm saying like, I'm going to take what happens in the barbershop and elevate it to move our culture forward. And I'm going to make money doing it. Then I'm going to take that money and empower other people to do the same thing over and over and over again. And that's what it's about.
Yeah, I can actually see the same thing happening with like the beauty shop because it's the same type of vibe for women where it's like they come in and talk about everything. So that's the idea right there.
Right.
But man, definitely appreciate you coming through, man. Scratchin' the Surface podcast, first episode. One more thing, where can they find you on social media? What's your handles, all of that?
At Sebastian Who, at SebastianWho, Sebastian Who. And then the barbershop is Social Club DET, at Social Club DET.
All right.
All right.
It's a wrap.
Thank you, brother.
Easy.